Good morning. We are going to start pretty quickly, so let's just get right into it. We're going to do our training for April STAAR. This is for next Tuesday and Thursday, but really our whole week is impacted. So let's just pay attention to what we've got going on so we can all be ready for what lies ahead. Okay, STAAR manual. Manuals never take the place of reading. Training never takes the place of reading your manual, excuse me. So always need to revisit the manual. I know y'all have had an electronic copy since October, November. Hard copies were placed in your box, so the actual manuals were placed in your box. I believe it was Friday morning at some point, and then there were a few more that we were short. They were finished and placed in those boxes yesterday. So make sure you've revisited your manual, and I'll tell you exactly some pages to review in just a little bit. Let's just get into it. Who's doing what? The overview of the week looks like this. We start out and we end with a B day. The 3 days in the middle are A days. Although Tuesday and Thursday, the A day is really just a placeholder on the calendar because we are completely relocated for the entire day. If you're in a testing room, we'll be doing English or English 1 or English 2, respectively, as indicated. In non-testing rooms, could be an AD assignment in Google Classroom. Make sure that you have a backup plan in your bag of tricks, because if a student is not engaged, we need them engaged that day. So also there's AP and May STAAR tutoring, and Google Analytics certifications will also be taking place with some seniors. Now, Wednesday is going to be your regular A day. So as far as face-to-face total classroom instruction days, those will be Monday, B day, Wednesday, A day, and Friday is a B day. We will do makeups on Wednesday and Friday, but as far as classrooms, we are not relocated. Some overall glance, important information about these days and your room assignments. Everyone needs to make sure their room is ready. To do that, we need everyone's seats facing the same direction. I understand if you have tables in your room and you're not typically used for a test room, this looks a little weird. Just everybody do a little spring cleaning. We need, if you have desks 25 to 28 facing the same direction, we need this taken care of by the end of the day Friday, because during the school day on Monday, April 4th, room checks will begin. If there is something that will hinder or help a student on the English test, make sure it is removed or covered. Start speaking with your students if you haven't already done so. Next week we have relocation days. Next week there's English STAAR. You will know by Friday. We will post a link for students, and I will send it through Skyward for parents as to where students will go, and as well as students. I'll do that as well, but I need your help. I need us all to be communicating so that we're all on the same page and students will know where to go. Remember, English days, we stay in these locations until the end of the school day, which is 4:05, whether it's testing or non-testing rooms. If you have a student that tells you they have early release, in order for them to be released at 2:15, which is technically the time, no one before then, and we're not talking about a ton of students, and I'm not talking about a student that says, well, I have off season and I get to go home. No. If a student has early release on their schedule and they can show it to you by them logging into Skyward, them pulling up their schedule and them showing you that's what they have, then at 2:15, not before, they will be released. Typically, that is only a few juniors and mostly some seniors that even have the possibility of that. And I always put students by grade who are not testing. So at least they should be in the same wing of the school or same area of the school. But we are not having a mass release. This is not, oh, okay, I want to let everybody go, because we're going to all be held accountable for that. So make sure you don't let any student leave for any reason, unless it's like one at a time to go to the bathroom. During these times, everybody needs to stay put where they're assigned. Students in testing rooms, you'll be in those the entire day as well. All students should bring their Chromebooks charged and ready to work. Talk through those issues with kids. We use assigned Chromebooks for the test. If a student has not been assigned a Chromebook, you need to email Mr. Craig and find out what you need to do, who needs to get them that, because that is something that needs to be taken care of ASAP. Talk to them about charging, even about restarting. There are updates that need to happen on these computers. It would help us tremendously if every period y'all would just restart the computers this week. Just restart them. Have a student wipe that sucker clean. It will be great. And speaking of that, Robert Jones has a method of us kind of rebooting and cleaning up the Chromebook system, getting the trash out of there that is a lot faster than what we were shared with by the district. And so I will include that at the end of training when I have the recording done and everything's processed. I'll send you that, the link to the recording, the link to the slides, the confirmation form, which will be due Thursday, as well as those steps that are a lot easier to follow. Students, again, will be released at 4:05. If you're in a testing room, you need to hold phones, electronic devices in the room until your bucket has been returned to the testing office and your room is given the all clear. Don't allow finished testers to be on their Chromebooks until that time as well. What we don't need to see in a room is a student working on something other than their test on the Chromebook. It is a distraction. It is really just, it's poor management when it comes to a testing room. So it interferes with actively monitoring in a lot of ways. Also, remember, just as always, if a student has a drink in class with a bottle of water, they can bring their own water bottle, but water is the only drink we need to allow. Students, all students, testing, non, and all staff, we will follow a designated lunch schedule for the rooms assigned. Testing students will eat a silent lunch, and all students will need to be in school dress. Again, room assignments, here are the things that happen. Everyone's reassigned and relocated on 4/5 and 4/7. That is Tuesday and Thursday. STAAR testing, AP tutoring, STAAR tutoring. Just remember the asynchronous learning is taking place through our Google Classrooms for your A-day classes. So for your A-day classes, make sure that you have posted to Google Classroom. It's also a good idea to keep in mind, guys, know your audience, know your classes. If you have a class that is filled with sophomores, they will be testing on Thursday predominantly. Same thing, if you have a class that's filled with freshmen, they will be testing on Tuesday. So as you put an activity or an assignment in Google Classroom, make sure that it's something that would enrich and something that students can independently work on or easily have the resources to do so. Okay, for attendance, we have been doing this now, well, since last year about this time we gave it a go, and now we've been consistently doing this. On Monday or prior to Monday, sometime around Monday, maybe Sunday night, I don't know, I'll send out the link to Azure roster and your staff assignment. That is what we will use to take attendance. Yes, I will protect the cells that we don't need to accidentally change. Or on purpose, whatever the case may be, but I will leave you a spot to mark the attendance, and we are only highlighting if they're here, and if a student is absent, indicate that in that specified column. I'll leave a notes column as well for this purpose. Everyone needs to make sure their attendance is correct at 10 a.m. Everyone, electronically, even if you've done it at 8, make sure that it is correct at 10. That is when our attendance ladies will snag it to mark it for attendance, and we need everyone to do it. I don't need them to have to call if they see no highlights or indications that you've taken your attendance, but we need your attendance taken. In addition to that, there are students that might come in a little late. Students won't be able to start testing after 10 because there's just not enough time to get them going in the day to be finished. But, I mean, maybe a little bit, but anyway, I will determine those on a need basis. Regardless, if a student comes in after 10, you can make the note. They are still absent. They are technically still absent for the day because they weren't here at 10 a.m., but you can notate in that note column, student arrived at 11, student arrived at 12:25, student arrived, hopefully not, but at 3. But whatever the case may be, that allows our attendance ladies to go back, refer to that document, and if a parent calls, we already know where the student is. Staff assignments, My goal is by Friday, but realistically, I want them available before Monday. And I know Monday is technically April 4th. There is a mistake in that. I'll fix that before I send it out to you. So be flexible, guys. The thing is we're all going to look at the staff assignment sheet and it's going to say something. And if there's an emergency that occurs and I have to flip somebody around, we all need to be prepared to test. Here are the possible duties. It says include, but not limited to, because something could come up that we find a need for, and that may become a duty. One of these may not be a need at this particular juncture, but it's something we've used in the past. Also note that SPED staff, paras, and some office staff, they will continue to carry out their everyday assignments. Also, sorry, one more note. We do need to consider these blackout days. I've said that in several emails. It's been on the testing calendar since day one of this year. So we need to make sure that if you are absent, it's something that's already previously known about. Obviously, we cannot plan for emergencies and things happen in your family, always a priority. Emergencies, they're out of our control. And this test means nothing in comparison to those things. But as far as a personal day or something that wasn't already pre-approved or prior knowledge of, it doesn't need to happen. So if you have communicated with me and just want to make sure I have it, I don't mind receiving that again in the email, but I need to have it in the email, and please go ahead and copy your administrator. Okay, testing reminders. These are pages in your book that I need you to revisit. And you're like, oh, it looks like the whole thing. Well, in some ways it might, but it's not. So make sure to revisit these pages. I'm making a note for myself. I would say of all the things, if you feel pretty confident in most things, everyone, that means all of us, need to revisit 37 to 44 and 57 to 64. The reason being, test administration directions and what happens from one test to another changes. So if you are visiting that, then you can be aware of the bold types. You can make notes in your book. You can know what things could tie you up so that we are not leading students astray and we're more comfortable on the day of test. And we're also operating within the parameters of a manual, because remember, training never takes place in manual. All right, on the test tickets look different. If you have had a part in the English 2 field test, TELPAS testing, December testing this year, then you already know the test tickets look different. Accommodations are no longer notated on the ticket. It really just includes general information about the student, their birthday, their name, the TXDS number, which is a state identifier that we use for students in Texas schools. And the ticket alone will not get someone into the test. That with their session ID is what gets them into the test. So session ID is something that I have to create, and it is something that I give to you, and you will be told on your checklist when to put it on your board. Just remember, when students have all of that information, it is fair game, and in their minds, they can go ahead and log in, but we need to do it as you direct and leave that room. Also, the test tickets, you need to be treated as secure documents, just as secure as a test book. That's what we account for. So when we're counting to make sure that you can check out your bucket, it's by your test tickets. So you have all the test tickets you need. So when you come check out, you're going to look at your accommodations page, see what's on there. Should you have anything other than your test book, or your test ticket, it will be indicated there, but we have to make sure it matches the students that you have in your room. I also think it's a good idea on those test tickets. Let me just go back to that real quick. You can place them on the desk now because they can't by themselves get a student into the test. So instead of putting Post-its on every desk to mark where a kid goes, just put the tickets out. No big deal, but you have to account for those and pick them up. We'll be collecting those too for absent kiddos after the 10 o'clock attendance. So another thing, I'm sorry, I just thought about this as well. as students finish, sometimes it's easier because you may have 5 kids finish at one time and submit their test. Just put the time they finished on the ticket, and then that's the way you can notate it on the roster later. It makes it easier. Lunches, talk about that for a minute. The test time must be stopped for a lunch break, and it restarts when you resume your room. So stop and restart times must be recorded on the seating chart, on your start-stop sheet. If everybody does it the same, it can just be on that first sheet. If it's different, it has to be on your start-stop sheet. Students press pause. This does not mean to end or submit. They have to press pause, and it truly looks like pause on the computer. So it has the two little lines for pause. It's up at the left corner, and you'll press pause for that. The lunch schedule is very regimented. It tells you when to stop. It tells you when to take your students down to the cafeteria. You also have to pick up. That's whether you're in testing rooms or non-testing rooms. Everybody has to take their kids. Everybody has to pick up their kids. It's the way we can maintain security in the hallways. We can also help with crowd control and getting us back on schedule as quickly and efficiently as possible. So once you return to your room, have your kids settled, and you're ready to begin as a room, then you will say, well, now resume the test. They will re-log in, because when they press pause, they've closed the lid, you've locked the door, walked out the door, you come back in, you just tell them to open it up, and we'll all resume together. They log back in, resume, you record the time. And students must be monitored by testing personnel. That is all of us. Anybody can be a lunch monitor. Not allowed to discuss any content during lunch, so that's why their lunch has to be silent. All right, the designated supports: content and language support, text-to-speech, speech-to-text, spelling assistance. Out of those, the only one that we really don't have at Mesquite High School is speech-to-text. It's a very specialized thing that students might access for different reasons, but it's not anything that really has come in as a need for our students. Also, for text-to-speech, you have to have a headphone. You have to have headphones for text-to-speech. So if that's on your accommodations page, I will have allotted headphones for your room. Make sure that the number of headphones that you are given is the number you return. There's no supplemental aid for English 1 or English 2. It may appear on their accommodations page, but we don't routinely use those in English 1 or English 2. So they are not part of the curriculum and not something that we will have, that we will be providing, because it's not something we use. Extra time is at the end of the school day. I hope this doesn't come into account for any of you, but at 4:05, when the bell rings, if a student is still testing, you will have already told them there's 30 minutes remaining, 15 minutes remaining, 5 minutes remaining. And it kind of increases some stress, and I hate that. But I hate even more when we have to tell the student, okay, we're going to go ahead and submit your test at this time because time has ended. It is a time test. Even if you have extended time, it has to be done by the end of the day. Testing irregularities. The biggest thing I can say is keep students testing unless you hear otherwise from me, or you're directed by someone communicating for me. If they say I said it, then that's okay. But you call 6520. That is Ms. Hill's extension, and I may be helping, assisting, pulled away from my desk, so somebody will answer that extension. Even if Ms. Hill has been pulled away from that desk, someone will answer that extension. You can tell them what happened, you will make the documentation, and you will continue with testing unless you're directed otherwise. Follow the checklist. I can't say this enough. Checklist is something I came up with a long time ago. This is my 16th year as a testing coordinator, and oh my gosh, the things I've learned along the way. But when we instituted a checklist, it's because it would help me. To be real honest, if I had a guide to something that helped me from being so anxious about it, I knew that when I was in the room, I was overwhelmed, and I wanted to make sure I'd done everything that I needed to do and taken care of business. And there's just so much information in the manual. So I have instructions, and if we read the instructions and we're all on the same page, then we're all going to be okay. I mean, it goes from the very beginning to pick up your materials by 8:05. we understand that at 8:05, you may have been in line for 10 minutes and it may not be out. I hope that's not the case. I really want us all to be done by 8:05, but it doesn't mean, hey, I can roll in at 8:05 and get in line. We need you here so that we can be prepared for kids. Check your test room thoroughly. Everybody needs to make sure you're doing that. Nothing that hinders or helps, but we do that again once we're in the room. It goes on to tell you even when to tape up the do not disturb and room logs, when to put your session ID on the board, encouraging kids, because sometimes we get so wrapped up in things. That is why I leave that in our checklist, because we need to remember what we're here for. Every single thing that you need to do is in here. When we talk about seating chart, oh wait, let me talk about Chromebooks first. Chromebooks right here. Once a student is seated, have them restart their Chromebook. Everyone should restart. We talked about this just a little earlier. There are updates that aren't happening for Chromebooks because students do not restart. And you've assigned them to a seat at that time, but let's say a kid gets in, they think they charged their Chromebook, or maybe they completely forgot, but they brought the charger. They're like, miss, I don't know what else to do. Hopefully you're all encouraging your kids to charge every single night. But something happens, they get here, and we need to modify and adjust and move them closer to a plug. Just change where their number is on your grid. That grid is blank for a reason. I don't mandate who sits where. That's your call. So we use the number on the roster to indicate where the student sits in your room. Use a pencil. Just make the change. So do whatever we need to do. We're trying to exhaust all efforts to use the Chromebooks that the students bring versus checking them out. We only have about 70 to check out, and we have a lot of students testing on these days. If we run out of computers, those students have to be moved to test another day. When we have to move them to test another day, that's more time out of instruction. Yes, we will have makeups, but makeups for a student that is absent is much more manageable than makeups for students who are absent or we've run out of computers for because we could have prevented it. In addition to that, Robert Jones has a method, I think I stated this earlier, of helping us to reboot the system, and it's a lot faster and easier than what we were initially shared from our district. So it'll be part of the email I send with your form to confirm your training. Okay, I'm not going to read every part of your checklist because I did include it in these slides. I am going to send your slides out, and I want you to be able to revisit it. So it is here. There are things you need to just make sure. We talked about attendance. We've already talked about all these things, when to distribute this, that, all the other things. So make sure that you have taken care of this. Actively monitoring, doing your attendance, revisiting things, helping students submit. All right. So when it's time to submit, we want our kids to raise their hands and help us guide them through the process, because they literally click in test, then they hit submit test. Yes, I want to submit the test, all the things. If they happen to submit without your assistance, then I need you to have them log in again and prove to you that it's been submitted. And we do this because if they log in and they have submitted, then the test will say they've already exhausted their possibilities, or this test no longer exists for this student. And that would be because they've submitted. Now, if they haven't submitted, they'll be able to end test and submit at that time. Make sure you've recorded your finish times. So if it's easier, make sure you write them on your ticket. As students finish and you collect the materials, you'll create in different stacks. Anyway, all this is part of your checklist. Make sure you read it and know that that is part of procedures. Other things, arranging kids, be flexible. We just said this. Make sure you move kids if you need to. If the need arises, don't be glued to what you initially wrote on your chart and say you can't move a kid other way. Yes, you can. There's a number on your page. Just move the number. Make sure it matches where the kids are. Remember to find a solution before checking a computer out. But, oh, I need to go back real quick. It's catching up with me. Hang on. One more, I think. Okay, up here when we're checking out, students don't log in. They're going to the secure testing browser app. So I would tell them when they come in, restart their computer and just show everybody that it's on the login screen. Do not have them log in. But if you have to check it out, there's a checkout sheet that if you have 2 people in your room, one of you will fill it out and take that sheet, not your students. Take the sheet, go get the computers from the designated person area on your hall, bring them back, get started. This needs to happen quickly. If you do not have 2 people in your room, then there is an additional person assigned to your room that will be helping you with this process. All right, moving forward, sorry. All right, make arrangements to take a brief lunch. If you're a bathroom or a hallway person, arrange it with your partner, okay? If you're in a room, there may be a testing partner or someone that is in the hall. Y'all just all need to take care of each other, but we don't really have time for a lot of breaks. So if there's a one-on-one assignment, like there's 2 of you at a bathroom, multiple of you in a hallway, 2 of you in a classroom, we need to manage as adults and make this easier. Just know that we're all assigned to these spots until the end of the day. And then there's another note about we release kids at 4 and not handing electronic devices back in a testing room until you're all clear, Chromebooks either. And then also about early release students in non-testing rooms. All right, if you have questions, email me or come by. Once you receive your form, it will be due no later than noon this Thursday. Y'all have a great day. Thank you for your time.